Welcome to Opposition Territory here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest-running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world. 12 years strong. We got a great discussion coming your way here on Opposition Territory this week where we dive into the Green Bay Packers, what their offseason has looked like. We got a great discussion. And joining us this week, coming to us from the AcmePackingCompany.com, he's got some cats in the background as they're going through some home renovations, as you can hear. We've got our good friend, Evan Tex Westman. Tex, buddy, how you doing, my man?
Hey, doing great. Yeah, sorry, this old cat here might be showing up in the background of the audio, but yeah, it's going well. Summer's going great. Packers' first practice is underway as we speak.
Yep.
So yeah, it's an exciting time, and looking for this team to build on some of the things that they put together in the 2024 season, especially defensively, which we'll get into. But
yeah,
it's an exciting, it's a fun time to be a Packers fan, and having the draft in Green Bay this year was just fantastic. Got out there for the whole time. Got to sit in the theater for a little bit,
right,
on Saturday, which was a blast. So I mean, just such a cool event. And
you guys did a lot of content. From there.
Yeah. We tried to do, we were doing little Instagram videos, myself and a couple of our other Acme Packing Company colleagues out there together, kind of just trying to give everybody a feel for the event and the space and how everything was being run. And the Packers got some really exciting players too. So that's also fun. And, but yeah, it was a great time, and looking forward to this season coming up.
Yeah. The Packers are a team that are growing, developing in various ways, whether Eagles Nation likes it or not. they're a team that is, it's still continuing, I think, to be on the rise here in 2025. And we're going to get into a lot of it here on this podcast episode. But before we do, buddy, okay, before we get into any talent, before we get into what we may see on the field, we got to get into this one topic right off the bat, because of course you cover the Packers. We cover the Eagles here on this podcast platform, and I guess it's the elephant in the room here. And I know you and I are good friends, even outside the realm of this podcast and the sports world. And I know our listeners would want me to ask this. So during the offseason, as we all know, the Packers proposed a rule to ban the tush push in the NFL, and it came close to being banned, but it's still allowed at this point. Eagles Nation, obviously, just absolutely, especially online, on social, just killing Packers Nation over this when the proposal and the vote was going down. I wanted to get your take on this, my friend, the rationale for the Packers team wanting to go ahead with this in the first place here, and just what your overall reactions have been to this. What are your thoughts here, buddy?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a couple things that are in play here, right? Based on the voting, we saw that there was a lot of support across the league for banning the tush push, right? It came up just 2 votes short of the 24 votes that they needed to make that rule change happen. And I think there's something with that we need to keep in mind with the politics of the owners in the NFL, right? The Packers don't have an owner. They have a president and CEO who is their representative in owners meetings and things. And Mark Murphy is retiring on Friday. He is by Packers bylaws.
Right.
He's at 70 years old. He's retiring. And I think the narrative of the Packers being the ones to submit the rule was a bit overblown, because there's some reporting out there that Mark Murphy basically offered up, hey, I'll be the sacrificial lamb. I'll be the one to fall on the sword, because I'm retiring anyway and I'm going to be gone. So what does it matter if I'm the one who suggests this rule change? And then it kind of takes pressure off all of the other owners who maybe wanted to see that rule changing, but didn't want to be the ones to take the heat.
Right.
So I do think there's a lot of that in play here, that Murphy, especially, he got the draft to Green Bay. He's done all these great things for the team, and some, he's done some really good things, I think, in the league and the competition committee as well. But I thought this was sort of, I think that reporting makes a lot of sense, that he could be in a position where he could take that sort of political heat, so to speak, by presenting this rules change proposal, knowing that he's basically a lame duck and he's going to be out of that position, and not be representing the Packers in owners meetings and things moving forward. So I think that plays a lot into it. And as far as the play itself, Like, I don't know. I don't really care. Like, defend it and figure it out. The Packers have actually
Yes.
done a halfway decent job of defending it over the last couple of years.
Them and the Buccaneers.
Jobs. Yes.
Yes.
So that's part of why I don't necessarily like really fully buy into the idea that the Packers were scared of this play because they've actually had a halfway decent job of defending it. So
Yeah.
with all that combined, I don't really. It's also one of those things, right? They originally had a very narrow carve out to make that play illegal, and then they expanded it out to be all pushing the runner, which was, I mean, illegal until whatever it was, 2005 or something.
Right.
Anyway, so I don't really care either way. To be perfectly honest with you, as a
Right.
Packers fan, like if it's legal, figure out how to defend it. If it's not, okay, well then it's out. So
It was probably the
here we are.
dirty Washington Commanders organization. That's probably who it was
Yeah.
behind the scenes. We saw what
Well, hey,
happened
and
in that NFC
Murphy.
Championship game.
Yeah, and
Yes.
Murphy played for the Commanders, so who knows?
Yes.
Maybe he talked to I
Maybe.
don't let's go down the conspiracy theory rabbit
I
hole
know.
here and
Exactly.
figure out how this all came together. But yeah,
Well, buddy, I really wanted. I'm glad. I was really happy to get your take on that. It's an interesting take for sure. It really is. But I mean, most importantly, as we're moving forward here in 2025, the Green Bay Packers, they're going to be a team to watch in the NFC for sure, and specifically their quarterback Jordan Love and what he is going to be doing as the leader of this Packers offense. Wanted to get your take and your thoughts on where he is going to be going, because he's certainly been developing, as we have been seeing. He's one of the better quarterbacks in this league. But last year, I mean, he did take some step back, or he had some step back in just about every major statistical category from what I was actually reading and going through. Look, he does have 57 total touchdown passes in his first 2 years as a starter. So end of the day, I'm wondering, like, what kind of Jordan Love are we going to be seeing under center on the field this coming season, Tex? What are your thoughts?
yeah, I think the first biggest thing to keep in mind with Love is that in that Week 1 game against Philly and Brazil,
Yeah.
he messed up his knee pretty good
Yeah.
at the very very end of that game.
It was an MCL, right? I think.
Yes, yeah, sprained his MCL. He missed the next 2 games. Packers were able to win both of those games with Malik Willis, the backup quarterback, coming in and playing well. But it clearly affected him throughout the rest of the season, and then he kind of had a muscle issue, like a groin issue, that flared up again later on in the season. So he was never fully healthy at all last season.
Yeah.
I think that's part of why the Packers were such a run heavy team throughout the entire year. At some points, I think those of us at Acme Packing Company, who think that they were too reliant on the run last year, but they were definitely calling things to keep him protected and kind of building around, certainly finding Josh Jacobs as a bell cow running back helped out with that.
Yeah.
But they made some changes, I think, this offseason. I don't think you're going to see as heavy a run script focus this coming season as you did last year, just because as long as Jordan Love is healthy, I think you've got a quarterback who can very well play up to the second half he had in 2023 when he
Yeah.
was just lighting the world on fire. So
Yeah.
I think the injury piece of it was really a big factor for him last year. He wasn't nearly as mobile as he was when he was healthy, and the couple of games kind of around mid-season between when he was healing up from that knee injury and before the groin kind of flared up, there was a game against the Texans where, in particular, like the Cardinals and Texans games, like week 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there, he started ripping it again. And you started to see the Jordan Love that you saw in the second half of 2023. As long as he's healthy, the Packers have invested some in the offensive line this offseason.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a return back to that early Jordan Love. And I think the other thing is development of the receiving core. You've got a more diverse group of receivers, I think, this year. And if they can catch the ball better than they did last season, which was a big problem,
Yes.
he's gonna get some. I think he's gonna get some more help from his receivers. In ways where, I mean, they were among the league leaders in drops last season, so he kind of got screwed over a little bit by some major drops issues by Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks in particular. So there's a lot of reasons to think that a big bounce back season is coming this fall.
It's a great segue into the next topic here because this Packers offense overall, Tex, going to be interesting to watch as they're in a division with some some high caliber defenses. There's a lot of really
Yep.
great defensive talent within this division. As you mentioned, Josh Jacobs being that bell cow running back, really strong coming out of the backfield last year with 1,329 rushing yards. I feel like the Packers receiving core was developing to an extent. You did mention the drops, however, if you're into fantasy, folks, you got to be a little wary, I guess, going into this season. But I'm wondering what that balance is going to be. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but the balance between the Packers' rushing attack and the receiving and passing game overall this year, how do you see that balance really taking shape?
Yeah, towards throughout most of last season, again, they were one of the most run heavy teams,
Yeah,
especially in neutral game situations in the NFL. They were not that in 2023, and so I think you'll see them revert a little bit back again as long as Love is healthy. They'll be a more conventionally balanced team versus run pass ratio relative to the rest of the league. I don't think they're going to be out here coming out and throwing on 70% of their first down plays,
right.
but something more like a normal 55-45 split is probably reasonable. I would expect them to be middle of the pack rather than so run heavy this season. And some of that again is you've got a big group of diverse wide receivers, diverse talent, and I think the other factor here is they're also sort of changing the way they want to run the ball.
Okay.
They're seeing the success that Philly and Baltimore are having with the power running game and these big road grading offensive lines. And the Packers have invested in beef this
Yes,
offseason.
they have.
They signed Aaron Banks, a big guard from San Francisco. They moved Elton Jenkins to center, got rid of Josh Myers in free agency. They drafted Anthony Belton, who's a massive 6'6", 330-pound tackle in the second round. Might end up kicking inside to guard, playing right guard. So they're definitely clearly focusing more on big guys who can move, but big guys who can also move defensive linemen in the run game. For so long, this team has been kind of a finesse running team. Aaron Jones, there's that more that type of back.
Yeah.
Did a lot of zone running with in the early LaFleur days. I think they want to be a power running team. They're going to be an interesting kind of spread power team. The last couple of years, they've used so much of their bigger receivers to block as slot players. I think you might see a little more spread out formations, but still running power running concepts on the interior with this big offensive line. So that's sort of how I see the running game maybe evolving this season.
It's really interesting how you mentioned the power running game of the Eagles, the
Yep.
Ravens. You could even say with Bijan Robinson down in Atlanta too,
Yes.
just
Yep.
how we have I don't want to call it a change in offensive philosophy in the NFL overall, but more along the lines of we have to adapt as we're moving
Yes.
forward. It's not just about throwing 500 yards per game for any NFL team anymore. The balance of the rushing attack and the passing game too. I think we're starting to see that evolution a little bit more. There's different eras in the NFL from an offensive perspective. It was high flying offense consistently, and those teams were doing really well in terms of their playoff chances, what they did in the postseason as well, winning championships too. But we're really seeing that change. And I think we could potentially see that with the Green Bay Packers this year. They're understanding what's happening here again with how the power running attack leads to success in the league. So I think it's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, you always want to be on the cutting edge of those transition periods, right?
Yeah,
You don't want to be the last team to figure out, oh, we need to be going to a power run game.
right.
And with the trends on defense being to play so much nickel and dime and so many
Yeah,
smaller,
yeah,
so much smaller personnel groupings, it just kind of makes sense that that's the next kind of shift offensively. So things are cyclical. That's how
yes.
this works in the NFL. I'm glad the Packers, it feels like, are kind of getting on the early side of this wave, in making this investment in this sort of philosophy change. And again, they've got some really interesting receivers. They've got some great offensive weapons in the passing game as well. And Matt LaFleur really loves this idea of the illusion of complexity, where you give a lot of different looks. You throw a lot of different looks out there, but then you also run similar looks a lot, and you do a lot of different things out of the same types of formations. So
Yeah. Yeah.
lots of different ways to set up plays and play calls, and their play action calls when they can get them going are really exciting. And Tucker Kraft has blowing up as one of the most exciting young tight ends in the NFL
Yes.
too. So there's lots of reasons I think to be excited about this Packers offense.
It's going to be fun to watch them. And again, folks, we're talking to Evan Tex Western from acmepackingcompany.com. Great SB Nation site. We love our SB Nation sites here at the PST Podcast Show. Buddy, tell everybody where they can find you on the interwebs out there if they want to connect with you. I know you're on Blue Sky. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, acmepackingcompany.com. That's the primary place. We just finished up a series on the Packers all quarter century team. So we picked the best Packers players at every position for the last 25
You were
seasons.
writing those pieces, I think, right? Yeah.
I did yeah, there were several of us that were
Yeah.
contributing on that one, and taking reader votes and things. We put together a pretty impressive squad, I think.
Yeah.
There's been some good players that have come through Green Bay in the last 25 years. So
Oh, yeah.
that was a really fun project to work on. During the season, once we get into the regular season, I'll be recording our kind of game recap podcast on the Frozen Tundra Frequencies podcast network. So look up Frozen Tundra Frequencies anywhere where you get your podcasts. You'll find myself, a couple of our other folks working on different shows throughout the week. And then, yeah, you mentioned it, Blue Sky at Tex Western. I'm on Instagram at Tex Western as well. And then you can find Acme Packing Company on Blue Sky, on Instagram at Acme Packing Co.
They do great work over there, folks. And if you want to follow us, if you're watching here on YouTube, and if you're listening as well, at Philadelphia Sports Table on Instagram. We're over on Twitter/X at Philadelphia PST. You can just search us out on just about any social media platform, like our Facebook page. We're over on Threads. I'm over on Blue Sky at Jeff Warren. I'm also on TikTok at Mr. Jeff Warren. So that being said, folks, we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we got more Packers talk coming your way. Stick with us. All right, we are back. And again, we're with our good friend, Evan Tex Western from acmepackingcompany.com, talking about this Green Bay Packers team, the upcoming season. I want to move over to the defense now, Tex. There's some reasons, I think, for optimism with this Packers pass rush heading into the 2025 season. Kenny Clark is now healthy. Lucas Van Ness is poised to take some major steps, I think, here in year 3 for him. And Jeff Hafley, I mean, he gets real creative when it comes to blitzing packages, as many of us know who have followed his career, and what his defensive fronts have been able to do. So I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on where the pass rush goes for the Packers this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest questions for this squad is how do you get consistent production out of that pass rush? Last season, that was a big challenge was they didn't get a consistent production out of that group. There were a couple of games that they had 7-8 sacks, but that happened, I think, once or twice throughout the season against bad offensive lines and quarterbacks that take a lot of sacks. It was Tennessee, it was Seattle. Other than those couple of games, they were out there getting maybe 1, maybe 2 sacks a game, and it was just a very inconsistent group. So I think you mentioned a couple of the big ones right off the bat, right? Kenny Clark, healthy coming into this season. We found out this offseason that he also had a toe injury that hit him in that Brazil game, and that really kind of sapped his explosiveness and his ability to collapse the pocket throughout the entire season. I think it was the only season of his career that he didn't even have a sack throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
So he definitely seemed to take a step back. Now we know that was injury related. Hopefully, it looks like I think he's going into either the last or second to last year of his contract. So he'll be motivated to put up a good performance this year. He's also moving back to the nose tackle position where the Packers had TJ Slayton last year, who was a solid run stuffer, but gave you basically nothing in pass rush. So you move Clark over from the 3 tech to the nose. Now you put a guy like Devontae Wyatt, who's more of a pass rusher, more of a penetrator at that 3 tech spot. So you got a better mix of pass rushing talent, I think, on the interior. You move out to the edge, and you're hoping for Rashawn Gary to take a step in year 2 in the new Jeff Hafley scheme. He did a better job as a run defender last year, but still needs to be that number 1 pass rusher, that that guy that he's got all the athletic ability in the world, but he needs to. And he needs to be a little more consistent with getting to the quarterback. Van Ness is kind of an open question. Great athlete, but the production hasn't been there yet in the first 2 years. So I think, and they've added some interesting pieces in the draft. And early on in day 3, they added Baron Sorrell out of Texas, who was kind of a shock when we realized just who he was and his whole story, that he lasted all the way to the 4th
Yeah,
round.
right.
Um, and if anybody followed the draft closely, that was the coolest moment of day 3, was the fact that he was there in Green Bay just because he's a big draft fan, and they let
Yep.
him sit in the green room and walk out and get to experience the, getting drafted in Green Bay and do a Lambeau leap and everything. That was awesome.
Yep.
But everybody at Texas says that, like, he was their favorite teammate last season, but in terms of character, motivation, ability, and everything. So he'll be an interesting guy to watch. And then they added Colin Oliver, a speed rusher out of Oklahoma State in the 5th round too. It was probably like just a third down pass rushing specialist. So there's some players there that they can build around, and some skill sets that if they put them in the right positions, I think there's a really good chance that they could put together a good pass rushing unit. The other guy I got to mention is Edgerrin Cooper, the 2nd-year linebacker,
Oh yeah.
who was a great blitzer, both in college and even last season as a rookie. So he'll be certainly an every down linebacker this season. Packers are expecting big things out of him. Fans are expecting big things out of him, and his ability to blitz and get after the quarterback is one of those things that he really brings from an off-ball linebacker position as well.
Yeah, I really would like to next get into an aspect of this Packers defense where I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure there are some folks within Packers Nation that also have some questions, and even folks that follow the NFC and NFL in general too. The Packers secondary, there have been ups and downs over the years with this unit and with this group. How do you view the Packers secondary, especially in a division where you have some very high-powered offenses who are going to try to really get the ball down the field, Tex? So what are your thoughts on, your analysis with regard to the Packers secondary?
Yeah, you start from the middle and work outwards. You start at that safety position where the team completely revamped the group last season.
Yeah.
Signing Xavier McKinney was a stroke of genius. Goes out there and has a pick in each of the first 5 games, gets all pro, as a no doubt, all pro safety. So you've got a great player back there as your center fielder, kind of setting the tone a little bit as a deep roving ball hawk out there. But Evan Williams, the 4th-round rookie last season, stepped in and was a really nice player at strong safety. Coming up and making tackles in the box. And so you've got a solid core there between those two at safety. I think the biggest question is going to come at corner, where Jair Alexander's gone, amid the
Yep.
whole contract situation and,
Yep.
and his continued injuries and missing games and things. But you look back at last season and they managed to put together a pretty darn good passing defense, with guys like Keyshawn Nixon and Carrington Valentine taking most of the reps at cornerback. So this year you got those 2 guys plus Nate Hobbs coming over from the Raiders in free agency. He'll probably be your main slot guy. If they can stay healthy and they can get a consistent help from the pass rush, I think there's a chance that the pass rush and the corner group can build off of one another and still end up functioning pretty well as a pass defense. I think Nixon's play as a boundary corner last year surprised a lot of people. I think he was a lot better on the outside than really anybody expected him to be, when he shifted outside to cover after Alexander pretty much went down for the season. So he's solid. Valentine's still a young ascending player. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of potential there. With him, he's never going to be a big physical tackler, but he's got really good ball skills, really good speed. So all these players have traits that you can really build around and be excited about. Obviously, health is going to be a big part of that. If there's one position on this team where depth is a big concern, it's probably a cornerback, because
Okay.
outside of those top 3, I don't really know that the Packers know who cornerback 4 is yet in that room. And so there's a lot of questions down the roster of who would step up if somebody goes down in that cornerback room. And so that's where I would really have some concern, is if there's an injury, then I really, I start to squirm quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, before I let you go, buddy, we're going to be getting into this these questions to close us out on our future opposition territory podcast, talking about other teams as well, talking about the biggest concern and what you are least concerned with in terms of the team. And again, on our opposition territory pods, just to let our listeners know, we're going to be talking about this more and more with each interview each week here on opposition territory. So again, two-part question for you here to close us out. What is your biggest concern for this team heading into the season? Then we'll get into what you're least concerned about. But what's the biggest team, or what's the biggest concern for the team heading into this season? I mean, is it the depth that you were just talking about at the cornerback position?
Yeah, that's right up there.
Okay,
I
or
still I
is there something else?
I still think for me it is the pass rush. It is
Okay,
the consistency.
yeah,
Finding a way to consistently get to the quarterback when when you need to. They haven't had the guy that, like Zadarius Smith a couple years ago, like Clay Matthews in his prime, where if a play needs to be made, that's the guy that you can count on to get there and make that
yeah,
play. Rashawn Gary hasn't quite been that guy yet, throughout most of his career, and this is a season where he really needs, I think, to step up and be that true game changing pass rusher. They can cobble together, again, I think, some pieces from other areas of the team, but I really would like to see him take that step. If he doesn't, I just wonder a little bit how consistent the group as a whole can be at affecting the quarterback, and then does that carry over to to affecting the secondary if a quarterback has got a lot of time to sit there in the pocket and
right.
dissect things. So that's probably still my biggest issue, if only because it was an issue all throughout all of last season. And they didn't really, aside from some mid-round picks, do a lot in terms of player acquisition to bolster that pass rush group.
Okay, but what about what you're least concerned about? Is it Jordan Love? Is it the receiving core? I mean, what are you least concerned about following this Packers team heading into this 2025 season?
I'm going to go with a little more broad concept and say offensive explosiveness.
Oh,
I
all
think
right.
this team is going to have a very explosive offensive philosophy, and they've got the players to do it. So we haven't even talked about first round pick Matthew Golden yet,
Oh, yeah.
who has
Yeah.
4.2 speed. Had a phenomenal season at Texas last year. He's easily going to be probably the fastest Packers receiver in modern history. And he's kind of a do-it-all guy. He's not
Yeah.
just a speed demon. He's not just a pure like Deshaun Jackson deep threat. He can run a full route tree, I think, and he's good on contested catches and things, despite being a little smaller guy, 5'11", 190, something like that. So I think you're going to see them use him a lot of different ways. I hope that we're going to see Jaden Reed and Wicks bounce back a little bit from some difficult seasons last year with drops and things. You've got Tucker Kraft, who's become a big play machine, as a tight end. You've got Josh Jacobs again with kind of his explosive ability, both as a receiver and a rusher. So I think there's lots of weapons, and I think a healthy Jordan Love is going to have no trouble distributing the ball, finding receivers, and he's not afraid to chuck it and let his guys go get it too.
Right.
So the big plays, even when the offense was kind of inconsistent last year, there were still big plays happening on a consistent basis. I see no reason that is going to change this season. I think you're going to see them picking up chunks of yardage pretty consistently throughout the year, and it's going to be a fun offense to watch. I think with the way that they use the play action game, the way they use tight ends and slot receivers on leak plays and things to get them open for big plays. It's going to be aesthetically pleasing to watch as a football fan, but I think the explosiveness is going to be a big function for this Packers offense again this season.
I think it's going to be interesting to see where the Packers go and whether or not them and the Eagles will be facing each other in the postseason. I think there's a good possibility of that happening for sure. Again, folks, he is Evan Tex Western from acmepackingcompany.com. Buddy, it is always great to talk to you. Always love our discussions. Our conversations are fantastic. And I'd love to have you on the show at some point down the road, my friend.
Hey, I appreciate it. It's my pleasure. Love doing this. And hey, I mean, we got a Week 10 game, Monday
Yes,
night game, which I think will be a nice big measuring stick game, probably for both teams this season. So
absolutely. I'd love to have you
it'll
come
be
on
a fun one.
our pregame show. You've done it many times. Let's get it done. Let's do it.
Done.
All
Absolutely. Let's do
right.
it. So thanks a lot, man. Hey, and go Pack, go.